Welcome back to The Explainer. So today we're unpacking a really profound morality tale drawn straight from ancient source material, all about the very first grave on Earth. And using some fascinating insights from the Journal of Islamic Studies, we're going to see how this story is way more than just a history lesson. It's actually this incredibly deep dive into human psychology, the true nature of sincerity, and the honestly humbling lessons we can learn from the natural world around us.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Have you ever actually stopped to wonder how early humans figured out what to do when someone died? I mean, it's such a fundamental human practice now, right? But there literally had to be a first time. So, how did humanity learn to bury its dead? It's a huge question that sets up the ultimate mystery of our origins, and the source texts we're looking at today give us a dramatic, tragic, and ultimately mind-blowing answer. Now, to really grasp this story, we first need to look at a key concept presented in the texts: qurban. Essentially, a qurban is a sacrifice or an offering. But here's the thing, it's not just about giving something up. It's specifically a gift presented to the Creator, intended to draw the giver closer to Him and seek His ultimate pleasure. And this ancient practice of offering a qurban, that is exactly what sets the stage for the massive, earth-shattering conflict between the very first brothers to ever walk the earth.
Section 1. The Tale of Two Brothers. Our sources introduce us to the sons of the prophet Adam, Qabil and Habil. And wow, the contrast between these two is just night and day. On one side, Qabil is described in the source material as incredibly harsh, selfish, and deeply driven by envy and entitlement. Then, on the other side, Habil is painted as kind, selfless, just a total picture of true goodness. This perfectly highlights that the conflict brewing between them wasn't just going to be some physical fight over resources. It was deeply, deeply spiritual.
Section 2. The Test of Sincerity. So, according to the narrative, a serious dispute popped up between the brothers regarding marriage and inheritance. And to settle things peacefully, their father, Adam, asked both of them to offer a qurban to the Creator. Whoever's offering was divinely accepted would be the victor. And this brilliantly illustrates the core message of the source material. Habil, who was a shepherd, offers his absolute best, the fattest, healthiest ram from his flock. He actually wanted to give what he loved. But Qabil, he was a farmer, and he does the exact opposite. He offers his absolute worst, spoiled crops and leftover grain he didn't even care about. Basically, their outward offerings were a flawless reflection of their inward sincerity.
Then we hit the climax of this test. A divine sign appears, and Habil's pure, sincere offering is accepted, while Qabil's spoiled, half-hearted offering is flat-out rejected. Now, a normal person might reflect on their poor intentions here, right? Not Qabil. His pride totally takes over. This rejection ignites a deadly, blinding envy within him, to the point where he literally threatens his own brother's life.
And how Habil responds to this death threat is just incredible. The sources capture in this powerful quote, "God only accepts from the righteous." I mean, think about the massive weight of that statement. Facing a brother utterly consumed by murderous rage, Habil doesn't lash out. He doesn't respond with violence. Instead, he drops this profound theological lesson. He's telling Qabil, look, divine acceptance isn't about the physical value of the crops or the ram. It is entirely based on righteousness, piety, and the purity of your heart. Tragically, though, that lesson falls on deaf ears. The source texts recount the grim climax of the narrative. Qabil actually acts on his dark, unchecked emotions and commits the unthinkable. He murders his own brother. This is recorded as the very first crime on Earth. And suddenly, in a flash, Qabil finds himself completely alone, just standing over his brother's lifeless body.
Section 3. The First Grave. Now, put yourself in his shoes for a second. Imagine being the first human being to ever witness death. What do you even do? There's no precedent, no funeral rituals to fall back on. To understand why this specific part of the story gets so detailed, the Journal of Islamic Studies points to a really fascinating concept called tarbiyah, which translates to education or cultivation. They argue that these ancient stories aren't just history, they are divine educational tools specifically designed for behavioral reform. And everything that happens next, it is an absolute masterclass in tarbiyah. The narrative describes Qabil as completely lost. He's literally carrying the physical burden of his brother's body around, utterly ignorant of what comes next. And this brilliantly shows how human intellect, despite its massive potential, was just completely paralyzed in the face of this grim, unfamiliar reality. His arrogance got him into this mess, for sure, but his mighty intellect couldn't get him out of it. Let's move to the next part and see how this builds, because this is where the educational aspect truly shines. A bird becomes humanity's very first teacher on funeral rites. A crow arrives, sent by God, and starts scratching and digging into the earth, right in front of Qabil. Then, it places the body of another dead crow into the hole and covers it up with dirt. And what's wild is that modern science actually backs this up. Corvids are incredibly intelligent and are known to hold what scientists call funerals in the wild. But here in the story, it serves as a clear, visual, step-by-step tutorial for early man.
Watching this unfold, Qabil is just hit with this crushing realization. The source texts record him crying out, "Woe to me! Am I unable to be like this crow?" And what's super fascinating here is that his immediate, gut-wrenching remorse isn't necessarily framed around the murder itself, but around his own sheer inadequacy. His ego is completely shattered. He realizes that a mere bird, a creature he probably viewed as totally insignificant, possessed crucial, fundamental knowledge that he, a human, lacked.
Section 4. Learning from nature. So let's unpack the deep, symbolic reasons behind what we just witnessed. I mean, why a crow, right? Well, the literary sources offer some really interesting insights. First off, the crow's black color is highly symbolic. It represents death, grief, and what the texts call the contracting of the human soul. It perfectly matched the dark reality of that moment. Second, it highlights that crows possess this innate, instinctual knowledge to bury their dead. And finally, and honestly most importantly for us, it teaches humans never to underestimate what we might consider lower creatures. So the crucial point here goes right back to that tarbiyah element we talked about earlier. Humanity's arrogance gets systematically dismantled when our deepest, most profound lessons come from the creatures beneath us. Think about it. The Creator didn't send some magnificent angel of light to teach Qabil how to bury his brother. He sent a crow, scratching around in the dirt. It is literally the ultimate lesson in humility. It proves that knowledge and wisdom can be placed anywhere, and we just have to be humble enough to receive it. When we pull all these sources together, 3 core takeaways really stand out for our own lives. First, sincerity of intention drastically outweighs the material value of any action you take. Habil's pure heart won out over Qabil's entitled, lazy offering. Second, unchecked arrogance and envy, they only lead to absolute personal and spiritual ruin. Qabil definitely learned that the hard way. And third, the natural world isn't just some passive backdrop for human life. It is a dynamic, living classroom filled with divine laws and wisdom, if we only pay attention. Which leaves us with this final, really vital question to reflect on. How often do we, as modern humans, overlook the profound wisdom hidden in the natural world around us? We've built these massive cities, we have advanced technologies, but are we still willing to be students of nature, just like humanity was forced to be at the very beginning? So take a walk outside today, look around, and ask yourself what the world is trying to teach you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.